Hello, and thanks for joining the webinar. Yeah, let's just wait a minute for everyone to join. Let's see. Yeah. Yeah, while we are waiting for other people to join, can you let me know where are you joining from? So I'm calling in from Zagreb, from Croatia. What about you? From which country are you calling in? Just send me a chat message or a message through this question pane so that I can see where all the attendees are coming from. Okay, while we are waiting for your answers, just a couple of notes. So first, we'll be recording this webinar and you'll be able to watch it from the same page where you actually are watching it now. So if you joined through LinkedIn or through YouTube, then basically on the same page you will also see the recording of this webinar. If you joined the webinar through Zoom, then you'll actually be able to see this webinar basically on the same page where you registered for this webinar. So basically the recording will be, I would say, available in the same place where you started with this webinar. Second thing, you'll be able to download this presentation deck and at the end of the webinar I'll explain actually where and how you can download this PDF presentation deck. Good. Yeah, I see some people telling where they're from. Okay, US, Minnesota, also from Canada, from India. Great. So people from all over the world. So thank you for letting me know where you're from. Great. Yeah, I think we can start. So welcome to the webinar, the certification process for ISO 27001 and ISO 22301. My name is 𝗂𝗲𝗴𝗶𝘀𝗁 and I'm the main ISO 27001 NIS2 and DORA expert at 𝘧𝗿𝗲𝗏, a company that makes compliance easy to understand and simple to use. And as I mentioned, this webinar today is streamed through 3 platforms, so through Zoom, through LinkedIn live events, and through YouTube live. And it will last approximately 45, maybe 60 minutes, depending on the number of questions you have. And yeah, by all means, please do ask as many questions as you want. And the more this webinar is interactive, the more it will be interesting for you and easier for me to present. And please feel free to ask your questions. You don't actually have to wait for this Q&A session at the end. You can ask your questions even during my presentation, and I'll try to answer your question as I go through the presentation. Good. Yeah, so let's move on to this next slide. So why is this topic important? Well, what you have to actually understand, and what I'll show you during the webinar, is that this certification audit is very hands-on, meaning that it's not very easy to prepare for it. And you need to really have, I would say, lots of things in place before you invite a certification auditor. So this is, something that requires, I would say, quite a lot of effort. And what I'll present in this webinar today are these 3 main stages in this certification process. But also through these main stages, you will actually understand what kind of preparation you need, right? So basically, this is I would say the majority of the webinar today, and the webinar is intended for all companies going for this certification for the first time. So if you've never done this, then this webinar will help you understand what is, let's say, expected from you during the webinar, during the certification audit. Great. Now let's one of my main points today really is this the greatest benefit really of doing the certification audit does not have to be only the certificate, right? So the document that you receive after this process. You can actually get some more additional benefits out of this certification audit, but then you have to actually approach this whole, I would say, process, this whole job from a positive side. Because then you will actually get much more improvements to your security other than the certificate itself. And this is exactly what I'll show during this webinar today, how to basically approach the certification from this positive side and how to get these additional benefits. All right, so the agenda for today, I'll go through the agenda for today, but as I go through this agenda, let me know which of these topics you find the most interesting. So just send me a message, and for me to basically understand what you would like me to focus on during the webinar. So any of these topics you like, simply send me a message, and this way I'll try to focus, I'll try to spend more time on this topic during the webinar. All right, so very shortly I'll speak about the certification bodies, then what are these 3 steps or 3 stages in the certification process, what are nonconformities and how you deal with these nonconformities, what to expect from auditors, so basically from these people that will come and audit your company, when will your company be ready for certification, and what are some main challenges during this basically when preparing for the certification audit. Okay, good. Now let's move on with this slide about certification bodies. So certification bodies are basically, organizations or institutions that must have some kind of a license for issuing certificates. Okay. And these licenses, they obtain these licenses from these national accreditation bodies, right? So national accreditation bodies are basically government agencies or let's say authorized agencies then that actually issue these licenses, and these licenses are really called accreditations towards a certification body. What does this mean? This means that you have to check out if your certification body has the accreditation, okay? Because if it doesn't have an accreditation, this means that it does not have a license to basically issue certificates. So one very important thing to do. For example, one of the most, let's say, known accreditations is this UCAS. UCAS stands for United Kingdom Accreditation Service. So obviously this is a British government body that issues accreditations to certification bodies. And actually, they issue certification body. They issue these accreditations not only to certification bodies in the UK, but also throughout the world. So, for example, very often you will see a certification body operating in, let's say, Germany, and it has the accreditation from UCAS. So it's fine, especially because UCAS is very known accreditation body. Okay, how to choose a certification body? Obviously, it needs to have accreditation. Obviously, you'll pay attention to price because these are, let's say, organizations that compete in the market, and one of the, let's say, points against which they compete is obviously price. But these are not the only 2 things that you should take into account. You should also take into account the experience of their auditors and generally the reputation. But one of the most important things is really how basically their auditors, whether their auditors have experience with your type of companies. For example, let's say that your company is, I don't know, a small SaaS provider, so software as a service provider, and if their auditors have never had any experience with these kind of companies, if they only audited, I don't know, some large manufacturing companies, then you might have some problems at the audit because the auditor might not understand what kind of basically business you're having. So the point being here is that you should ask during let's say when you take quotes from these certification bodies, you should also ask them the experience of their auditors. Okay, another thing here to consider or to think about obviously is cost. And the cost primarily depends on the number of employees that you have. Okay, so for a very small company of, let's say, only a couple of employees, the number of, the cost and actually the required certification audit effort. So the number of man days that a certification auditor will spend will be much smaller for a small company when compared to a very large company. For example, in Western Europe or North America, for a very small company of, let's say, 5 or 10 employees, usually the certification cost is around $5,000, $6,000, $7,000 or euros. And we'll send you now a link to this ISO 27001 certification cost calculator. So it's a completely free calculator where you can simply insert your information and it will estimate the amount of money that you would have to pay for this initial certification audit. So you can try it out and see, just to get a rough estimate of what this might cost you. So you can see now this link in your chat window. And just to mention that if you joined this webinar through YouTube or through Zoom, then you will be able to click and open this link without any problems. If you join the webinar through LinkedIn, then because of some limitations in LinkedIn, you can't click this link. But the workaround for this is simply that you copy this URL and paste it into your browser, and you will be able to open the link without any problem. Okay, and also to mention that certification is not mandatory. So there are some companies which are, implementing ISO 27001 or 22301 or any other ISO standard, and they simply don't go for certification. Why? Because their aim is not really to get certified. Their aim is simply to, adopt best practices for, information security or business continuity or anything that this standard covers. So the point being here is, you might actually think about that the certification may be not applicable for your company if, again, if you have some other goal for this implementation. Okay, good. Now let's see now what are these 3 steps in this certification process or stages. So basically, the stage 1. Or the first step in the certification is this stage 1 audit, also called document review. Okay, and this is basically where the certification auditor will take all of your documents and read them and compare them with the standard. So he or she, the auditor, will want to see if all of your documents are really compliant with the standard. And the second reason why the auditor wants to read all of your documents is to basically prepare for the stage 2 audit, and I'll explain this in a second. Now, stage 1 audit is typically much easier than stage 2 audit. And I know that, many people are struggling to write documents, and they're kind of afraid of really this documentation part. But in reality, this stage 1 audit is much easier. It's much easier to write documents rather than stage 2, where you will see that you actually have to implement and make sure that you're compliant with all of these documents. Okay, I'll come to this point again in a couple of minutes, but let me now explain you what this stage 2 audit is about. It's called main audit, and this is where the auditor is not interested anymore in reading your documents. Basically, he or she now is interested in finding out if you are really complying with all of these policies and procedures that you have written. So, just for an example, let's say that you have written a backup policy, and in the backup policy you have said that for a particular system you will do the backup, let's say, every 6 hours. Okay. Now the auditor will want to see if you're really doing the backup every 6 hours. So basically, he or she will ask your system, let's say system administrator, okay, please show me the logs of your backup system. And then, the system administrator will have to share the screen and, show the logs from the backup system. Now, if these logs show that the backup is done, let's say every 24 hours instead of every 6 hours, then this is a nonconformity. This means that you are not actually acting upon, that you're not complying with your own internal document. And this is where actually the auditor will raise a nonconformity. And I'll speak about these nonconformities in a couple of minutes. But the point being here is that you have to understand that a stage 2 audit is very hands-on audit, and the auditor will want to find out if you're complying with each and every sentence in your documents, each and everything that you have written in your documents. And of course, he or she will also take care that he or she checks actually all the clauses, all the controls that are mentioned in the standard. So very hands-on and very focused, not on theoretical things like documents, rather on very practical things on how you are actually handling your security in real life, right? In real operations. So why is stage 2 audit much harder than stage 1 audit? because most companies are using this I don't know, some kind of tools like, okay, if you're our customer from Advisor, then you might be using our toolkits or maybe this Conformia software, and using these kind of tools it's easy actually to produce all the documents that you need. Now these tools cannot help you, in actually doing the thing in your company. So I mean, the toolkit or software cannot help you actually perform the, I don't know, backup every 6 hours instead of every 24 hours. So it's something that you have to do operationally on your end. So you have to make sure that all the employees in your company actually understand exactly what needs to be done, and that are really doing all of these things in real life. So this is kind of the let's say difference between stage 1 and stage 2 audit. Now stage 3 audit is a so-called surveillance audit or surveillance visit, and it actually happens not right away, not during the initial certification. It happens afterwards. Now why is this needed? This is needed because once you pass this initial certification audit, so initial certification audit is basically stage 1 and stage 2 audit. After the stage 2 audit, if you're basically good, and I'll explain this, what makes you good or not good for getting a certificate. Basically, if you get the certificate is valid for 3 years, right? So let's say that you go for certification in, I don't know, May 2025. This means that the certificate will be valid until May 2028, okay? Now, during this 3-year period, the certification audit, the certification body wants to check out if you are maintaining your system, because otherwise, if you're not maintaining it, then you will lose the certificate. And the way for certification body to check this is to perform these surveillance audits, and they will basically perform at least 2 surveillance audits. So, if your certificate was issued in May 2025, then the first surveillance audit will be in May 2026, and the second surveillance audit will be in May 2027. Now, in May 2028, your certificate will expire, and then the certification body will tell you, okay, if you want, you can go for the recertification, and then you can actually get a new certificate on a 3-year period. Or you can simply let the certificate expire, and then this is it. Now this new recertification, then you have to go through this stage 1 and stage 2 audit. So basically as if you are going for the initial certification. Okay, so basically these are the 3 stages, and we'll share now with you this article on how to get ISO 27000 certified, where you can find some more information about these stages. Good. Now let's move on to the next slide, and this is around nonconformities. So first of all, what is a nonconformity? Basically, a definition of the nonconformity is very short. Nonconformity is a failure to comply with the requirements. So again, the example of the backup policy, the requirement from your own backup policy in this example would be that you perform the backup every 6 hours. Okay. If you perform every 24 hours, this means that you are not complying with your own requirement. This would be a nonconformity. Of course, the requirement can be from the standard itself, from ISO 27001. For example, 27001 requires you to write this statement of applicability. It's a crucial document. If you don't have it, then it's a nonconformity. Good. Now, how is this nonconformity documented? Typically, it's documented in a way that that you actually that the auditor writes exactly what the nonconformity is. He or she will make the reference to the clause of the standard, describe the evidence, these kind of things. And this nonconformity will be a part of this final report that the certification auditor will issue at the end of the audit. So, in other words, all the nonconformities that are found, that the auditor has found, will be listed in this auditor report that you'll get at the end. Now the question is, what is this difference between major and we'll actually send you now this link how to create a nonconformance report. Now, this article is not really relevant directly for certification audits. It's more, let's say, for if you're doing the internal audit. And I'll cover internal audit later on, but in any case, you can use this article, how to create a non-conformance report, the 5-step guide. You can use it when doing the internal audits. Now, the difference between major and minor non-conformities, they're relevant only for the certification audits. They're not relevant for internal audits. And the main difference is really that a major non-conformity means that, you know, you've done really something, you made some really big, well, I wouldn't say a problem, but you're missing something really big. This would be a major nonconformity. So, for example, a major nonconformity could be that you know, you have completely forgotten to write some mandatory document, like statement of applicability. Okay, if you don't have a statement of applicability, this would be a major nonconformity. Major nonconformity could also be that you had a major security breach. A major nonconformity could be that you have all the documents, but you're simply not complying with these documents. So, for example, again, this example of backup policy says 6 hours, you're continuously doing the backup every 24 hours. This is also a major nonconformity. Now, a minor nonconformity could be that, you know, it's not something that there is a nonconformity, but it's not substantial. So minor nonconformity could be that you do have statement of applicability, but that, let's say, it might be missing some minor elements. You might, I don't know, out of 93 controls, you might have forgotten to write one control there. Okay, it would be a minor nonconformity. Or let's say for this backup policy, let's say that you're generally doing the backup every 6 hours, okay? But every now and then, one day in a let's say month or 2 days in a month, you're not doing this every 6 hours, you're doing this in some other frequency. Okay, this would be a minor nonconformity. Now, why is this major and minor nonconformity important? It's important because if you get a minor nonconformity, then your company will be eligible for a certificate. Then you will get the certificate, okay? Right away after the, in a couple of days after the certification audit. Whereas if you get a major nonconformity, this means that your company is not eligible for a certificate. And this means that basically you first have to fix whatever problem, whatever nonconformity you have. And then when you present the proof, the evidence to your auditor that you have fixed this problem, then you can actually get your certificate after a major nonconformity. So, just to summarize, if you get only minor nonconformities at the certification audit, you will get the certificate and you will also get a deadline. Typically, this is a couple of months or maybe 12 months to fix these minor nonconformities. Okay, if you get a major nonconformity, then you typically get, let's say, 3 months to fix this major nonconformity, and only after you fix this nonconformity, then you will get the certificate, of course, if you fix it. Okay, so basically these are kind of the rules on the certification, and so we'll also send you now this link to this article, major versus minor nonconformities, and there you will see also some other examples of the differences between major and minor, and we'll also send you now this link to an article. It's called Big Guide to ISO 27001 Clauses. If you open this article, it basically lists you all the clauses in the standard, all the controls in the standard, and it gives you, let's say, an overview of what are the requirements for each and every clause, for each and every control, and then basically you will know, I would say, you will have a better idea on what you have to comply with. So basically, what are the requirements against which the certification auditor will assess your company. Okay, moving forward, what to expect, from these certification auditors, from these people that are, coming to your company doing the audit. What is very important to understand is that they have 3 methods of collecting the evidence. So one method is obviously, checking the records and reading your documents. The second method is personal observation. And the third method is interviewing your employees. So, for example, let's say that you want to check, okay, if the company is doing this, let's say, backup in a frequency that is prescribed, then obviously you have, written evidence. You have these records in the form of backup logs that you can check. So this is the first type of evidence. Now, second type of evidence would be, let's say, appropriate if there is no written document. For example, let's say that you have installed CCTV cameras in your office. Typically you don't have, I don't know, smaller companies especially don't have some kind of a blueprint, for the plan of these cameras. They simply install them and there they are, right? And then the auditor, has to, he or she cannot, take a written record about it. He or she simply has to walk through the offices and see if these cameras are really there. Now, the third type of evidence, interviews, is still very needed because in some cases the auditor won't find written evidence or won't be able to, get this personal observation, but this evidence is actually through the basically through verbal statements. So for example, let's say that you have a clear desk and clear screen policy where you specify that, if an employee, walks away from his or her computer, they have to, turn off the screen, turn on the passwords, lock for the screen. Now, again, there might not be any record there. It might be very hard for an auditor to observe, each and every employee in the company. In this case, really the best way for an auditor is to interview many employees in your company and basically ask them, okay, what do you do when you get up and go for a break? I mean, what exactly do you do with your computer? And then, by speaking to employees, then the auditor will, get a much better idea if they know that this rule exists at all. And, in some cases, he will be able actually to find out if people are really doing this, if they are aware of this rule. So, again, it's very important to understand that the auditor will be looking for all three types of evidence, not only for written evidence. Of course, the auditor will be looking for written evidence, records and documents, but I would say that these verbal statements are also fully acceptable, and these personal observations are also very important. Why is this important to understand? Because it's impossible to document everything. Okay, it might be possible for larger companies, but for smaller companies, if you're a couple of employees, come on, you can't write, let's say that out of these 93 controls you have selected 85 as applicable. You cannot write evidence for each and every of these 85 controls, but if the auditor asks you, then you simply explain verbally how you implemented some of these controls, and this is perfectly fine. This is perfectly acceptable for a certification. Okay, now a next thing here to understand is that what the auditor can and cannot do. Well, first of all, the auditor can access any of her documents because otherwise the auditor cannot find the evidence. The auditor can speak to any of your employees within the scope, and typically the auditor will want to speak both to your IT people, but not only to IT people. He will also want to speak to mid-level management. He will want to speak to the CEO. He will want to speak to, people who are, maybe on some construction site, if you have any of these sites and so on. So the point being here is that the auditor will be able to access basically anything and anyone within your scope. And you have to be aware of this and be prepared for this and prepare all of the employees for such an approach. Now, what the auditor cannot do is they cannot raise a nonconformity if there are no two ingredients to this nonconformity. The first ingredient is really the requirement, okay? So if there is no requirements for, let's say, let me think of an example. Okay, ISO 27001 nor ISO 22301, they do not specify what is the distance between primary and the secondary location. Okay, so there is no such requirement in these standards. And if you didn't specify such a requirement in your documents, then your certification auditor cannot raise a nonconformity that he thinks that this secondary location is too close to the primary location. So let's say that the distance is, I don't know, 5 kilometers or 5 miles. An auditor cannot raise a nonconformity because there is no requirement on the distance between these two locations. Okay. So this is the first ingredient. The second ingredient is the evidence. So if the auditor cannot find a clear evidence that something is not being complied with, then he or she also cannot raise a nonconformity. Okay, so why is this important? Because during the audit, you might find yourself in a situation that you don't really agree with the auditor. Now, how do you discuss this with the auditor? It's not like, I mean, the auditor has said something and I don't like it. I mean, it's not the way to speak to the auditor. You can't tell to the auditor, look, I don't like what you're saying. No, you have to speak to the auditor in a way that makes, let's say, sense from the audit point of view. So when an auditor, let's say, raises a nonconformity, you have to first see if this nonconformity is raised against a very clear requirement. So if there is a requirement, and second, if the auditor has a clear evidence. Now, if he has both a requirement and an evidence, then you have nothing to discuss there. I mean, then it's very clear. But if there is no clear requirement, or if there is no clear evidence, then you can start discussing this with an auditor. And, you know, in these cases, you may point to some potential mistake that an auditor has made. Okay, yeah, there is a free download that you can download from 𝗧𝗿𝗴𝗶 page. It's called What to Expect at the ISO Certification Audit, what the auditor can and cannot do. So we've sent you now the link to this white paper, and yeah, you can dig a little bit deeper into this topic by reading this white paper. Okay, now another thing that you have to understand about auditors is that they are, well, auditors, they're not consultants, okay? So if you do have a nonconformity, you can't expect them, you know, to spend a couple of hours, you know, to help you out, because this is not what they are paid for. And I mean, it's not something that it would be a conflict of interest if this auditor now starts consulting you. So it's a big no, right? However, there is, I would say, kind of a gray area, and let me go now to this fourth bullet just to explain this gray area. Now, you have to understand this mindset of an auditor. So, I mean, if the auditor is asking you questions and you're avoiding the answers, or simply delaying things, or avoiding the auditor, these kind of things, then of course the auditor will not be very happy to work in your company. And it is, I mean, to work for your company. So, and in this kind of situation, the auditor will have, zero, I would say, positive attitude towards you. But on the other hand, if the auditor, meets your people in the company, everyone is open, honest, telling exactly as the things are, without any kind of back thoughts, then the auditor will see, okay, look, these guys are honest, they do make some mistakes, but at least they try hard. In this case, the auditor will have this positive relationship towards you. Now, why is it much better to have this positive relationship with the auditor? Because in such cases, when the auditor has this positive relationship, then or positive attitude, in these cases, the auditor will be willing actually to give you a couple of hints on how you can improve things. And this is this gray area that I mentioned a minute ago. The auditor is not allowed to consult you, but basically he can give you some, couple of hints on what you can improve. And these hints can be, a couple of sentences. Let's say that the auditor has found something that is not really right. I mean, if the auditor is experienced, especially if he is experienced in the industry that from which you're from, this means that he has already seen, dozens and dozens of good examples of how security is handled. This means that, in a couple of sentences, he can, basically give you a whole new, let's say, way to handle things in a much better way than you do it. And, you can, through this a very short conversation, you can, resolve your problem in a much better, much quicker, much cheaper way. So the point being here, if you have this positive relationship with the auditor, if this auditor has a positive, I would say, attitude towards you, then he might be willing actually to give a little bit of a wisdom towards you, which will help you a lot. Okay, so try to try to go towards the audit in a positive way. Okay, we'll send you now also this link to this article. It's called "The Brain of an ISO Auditor: What to Expect at the Certification Audit." Just to get a little bit more ideas of what the auditor is thinking about and how to approach an auditor. Right, now, so what are the key things the auditor will be looking for? As I already mentioned, of course, this is the mandatory documentation. So you need to have all the mandatory documents, and we'll send you now the link to this article which lists all the mandatory documents for ISO 27001, and also a separate article for all the mandatory documents for ISO 22301. Then the auditor will be looking for if your activities comply with the standard. Okay, so for example, all of these ISO standards require you to create records for, let's say, your training, or create records from your internal audits, these kind of things. So you need to have these records or your other type of evidence, for proving that you actually comply with the standard itself. And then the third thing is that the auditor will be looking for evidence that your activities comply with your own documentation. Okay. Now, why am I emphasizing this third part? Because this third part, activities complying with your own documentation, this is, believe it or not, this is where 90%, so 9 out of 10 nonconformities are. So most of the nonconformities will not happen because you're not compliant with the standard. No. Most of the nonconformities will happen because you're not complying with your own documentation. And when you think about it, it's kind of, absurd, right? Why would you write documents that you are not compliant with? I mean, why would you write rules like, you have to do backup every 6 hours if this doesn't make sense for you, okay, for your company? Why not, writing 24 hours if this is fine from the, let's say, risk perspective? So, something to think about. Don't write documents that don't make sense. Write the documents that are really good, and that are first of all that they're not complicated, and that these rules are not too strict, or of course that they're not too loose, right? And if you're already using our toolkits or our Conformio software, then you will see that basically we designed these products so that you don't have to create too many documents, and once you do create these documents, that they are really adapted for your specific circumstances in your company. Okay, good. Now let's move on to this slide and on when do you actually go for certification. So first of all, you have to write all of your mandatory documents. It's clear. So this is something that needs to be done. When speaking about ISO 27001, you have to implement all of these controls that you have specified in the risk treatment plan. You need to perform an internal audit. This is also a mandatory part of the implementation. Yeah, just to actually go just one step before. So for this risk treatment plan, so basically you have to implement all the controls, but you also have to do this training and awareness for your employees, because if you don't do this training and awareness, then your employees will not know how to comply with all of these documents. Okay, and we'll send you also now this link to this ISO 27001 training and awareness page. This is basically a learning management system that will help you teach your employees about ISO 27001 and also make them aware about cybersecurity. So it's also one product that you know, helps you speed up this whole thing around training and awareness. Okay, so next step before the certification audit is to complete your internal audit and take all the corrective actions. And we also shared this link on this article called ISO 27001 Internal Audit, the complete guide. So basically it's an article which, you know, explains in pretty much detail on how to perform internal audits. Then you need to perform this management review. And this management review is something that follows after the internal audit and something that you have to do. It's mandatory, and this is some step, I would say, where your management team needs to review all the information from your ISMS and then make some crucial decisions. Decisions like, you know, introducing, I don't know, new documents, or maybe setting some different objectives, maybe nominating some other people, I don't know, investing more money, these kind of things. And then, of course, you have to check if you really are doing what you have documented. Again, I cannot, you know, emphasize this importance of really making sure that you comply with your own documents, because otherwise it's very hard to pass the certification audit. Okay, we'll share now with you also one article. It's called ISO 27001 Implementation Guide. And there in this article you will see, you know, basically all the implementation steps that you have to take, you know, what is the timing, time effort that you have to invest into this project, what are the costs involved. So you'll find it in this article. Okay, I have a question from Nehat. Could you advise me shortly, have in mind firstly my basic expertise, which is crisis communication and management, safety and health care for workers, protection from fire risks, risk assessment about all. What should help the certification based on ISO 27001-22301? Well, of course, crisis communication and management is important for ISO 22301, the business continuity standard. It's not so relevant for 27001. Health and safety, not really relevant for any of these standards. Protection from fire risks. So directly this protection for fire might be, let's say, related to business continuity, but I would say not so crucial. And yeah, doing the risk assessment is definitely important for both 27001 and 22301. And by the way, we'll share now with you this article about this is the ISO 27001 risk guide. And there you will see some details on how you can actually perform risk management for 27001, because it's actually different. So the risk assessment in health and safety for, let's say, 45001 is different from the one that you are doing in 27001 or 22301. Okay, now I'll share now one tool that you can use to help actually you implement the standard. So I'll switch the screen. Okay, so I'm showing you now this Conformio. This is ISO 27001 software. It's a product from 𝗧𝗿𝗏. And basically we created this Conformio software for companies, let's say from a couple of employees all the way to 200 employees. And basically it has a couple of things. First of all, it has all these steps that are needed, for the implementation. So as you can see, here we have the steps in the first phase, project preparation. Then we have this risk management steps, then security documentation steps. As you can see, lots of documents here. Preparation for the external audit. As you can see here, we have this, procedure for nonconformities, internal audits, training plan, setting up security objectives, management review, internal audit, performing the internal audit, and so on. And then we have this maintenance module for maintaining your whole system. And when you open a particular step, you will have these wizards for writing documents. For example, this is the wizard for writing the ISMS scope document. And it's already pre-filled, and you can simply go, through these steps here and then fill out anything that is needed for your particular company. And you have these also this wizard that actually takes you through each and every thing that you have to fill out, and also suggests you some things. It actually helps you fill out each and every thing that is important to adapt this document for your company. And then there is this audit and evidence module, and basically here it tells you, how far did you go in your implementation. So first of all, in this tab documents, it lists all the documents that you have and which status are these documents. And also, what are the relevant clauses, what is the status, and so on. And then this tab clauses and evidence, it shows you each and every clause from the standard and whether you're compliant or not. So for example, let's say a performance evaluation, it has these 3 clauses, and basically it says that you have completed all of these steps. When you open any of these, let's say internal audit, then it explains you what is the requirement from the clause and what kind of documents you implemented there and what is their status. And you also have this evidence of implementation in terms of various records and so on. So it's very easy actually to make this quick gap analysis and know exactly how far you are from completing the project. Of course, if something is missing, then you simply open and see what exactly is missing here. So this is the this audit and evidence, and finally you have this maintenance module, which basically tells you exactly what kind of activities you have to perform, when they are next scheduled, and what did you complete out of these activities, so that you have, I would say, an easy way to maintain your system so that you are passing all of these surveillance audits. Okay, so yeah, and just to mention, there are basically 2 versions of this Conformio. One is this version for end clients, so that any company that wants to go for the certification uses this. And there is a version for consultants, where actually consultants are using this Conformio to speed up working with their clients. And we actually have already a good number of partners who are actually using for this for a number of their clients, because they realize that they can actually reduce the amount of effort they have to work with their clients. So basically this speeds up and scales their business in a faster way. Okay, so basically this is the how Conformio looks like. What you can do is you can sign up for a free trial, and we'll send you now this link to the this page where you can see the details of Conformio and sign up for 14-day free trial. So you can simply sign up there and see. You can test all of these things that I was showing you on the screen. Okay, enough of promotion. Let's move on to, let me see if there are any other questions coming in. Okay, I don't see anything. So let's move on. So what are some challenges, that sometimes pop up, that people are often asking? Okay, one challenge is that there is, a huge amount of work, technical, organizational. This happens if you, try to do this whole job in a way that has nothing to do with your company. Again, if you're writing a backup policy, prior to this backup policy, you have to perform the risk assessment. So to find out what are the risks related to your data and how strict this backup needs to be. If this risk assessment allows you to do the backup in the same sequence as it was before you started your 27001 project, then there is nothing more for you to do. I mean, okay, you create this backup policy, which is, very quick using this kind of a tool, but you are not actually changing your technical implementation. You're simply continuing doing technically as you were doing it before. Of course, if the risks are really high related to your data, then you might actually change the frequency of your backup, and in this case, you would have to do it more often. But again, once you set it up to do this more often, it's usually automatic, and then there is also no additional effort there. So think about how you can actually, I would say, configure your security so that it does make sense both from the risk point of view and your operational point of view. And this is really the way to I would say, optimize this effort not to be too big. And of course, when you write documents, don't make them too complicated, don't make them too big. There is no such requirement in ISO 27001. If you can write a document on 1 page, why would you need 5 pages or 10 pages? Not necessary. Okay, have as much as possible common documentation and processes so that things are not duplicated. Yes, of course, if you have, I don't know, 3 or 4 standards, then, you know, for example, let's say that you already have ISO 9001 and that you go for ISO 27001, you can use the same internal audit procedure, the same document review, document control procedure, the same training procedure. So all of these things are basically common between these standards. So don't create 2 separate, you know, training procedures. Doesn't make sense. How the employees will respond to the auditor's inquisitive questions during a possible interview. Well, they will the employees will respond in a very bad way if they have no idea of what this security is about. In other words, if you never shown them these documents that they have to comply with, or if you've shown them these documents but never explained really what these are about or never trained them about, of course your employees will react in a very bad way, right? So, I mean, the point is, you know, first of all, write the documents that do make sense, not to piss off your employees. Second, explain them why this is needed. So this is awareness. Third, explain them how to use these documents. This is training. And if you do all of these steps, then you will have a much, I would say, better employees. I mean, the employees will react in a better way during the audit. Not knowing everything that we should be doing to maintain our certification. Okay, once you get certified, all you have to do is follow your documents. Your internal audit procedure will tell you exactly what you have to do in the next internal audit. Your backup policy will tell you exactly how often you need to do the backup. Your, I don't know, statement of applicability will list all the controls that you need to have. So basically, if you've written this documentation in such a way that it's, I would say, optimized and applied to and adapted for your company, you simply have to follow these documents, and this is it. It's nothing much more to it, especially if you use a tool like 𝗂𝗲𝗴𝗶𝘀, something that you have everything, I would say, in one dashboard. This makes it even more easy. Okay, challenge if our internal audits will match the auditor's expectations. Yeah, so of course you have to perform this internal audit, I would say, thoroughly, and you can't do this if you know nothing about internal audits. What we'll now share with you is this course, internal auditor course, and you can actually take this course for free. So we actually opened the lessons for free, and we charge only if you go for the exam and if you want to get a certificate from this course. But in any case, if you want to do this internal audit properly, you need to educate yourself on how to do this, and you'll see now this link to this internal auditor course. Okay, very well. Now let me make some conclusions, and then we'll go for the Q&A session. So, this certification is going to be, I would say, pretty straightforward if you prepare properly. And not only prepare the documentation, but also your employees so that they understand what to do and how to comply with these documents. And of course, for making all of these preparations, you can use some kind of a tool like 𝗂𝗲𝗴𝗶𝘀 software. And we'll also send you now a link to a meeting link to schedule a call with our 𝗂𝗲𝗴𝗶 expert, and he will show you actually how the software works. So again, you can sign up for a free trial on your own without any help from anyone. Or if you want, you can schedule this short demo with our colleague, and then he will show you all the details of how this software works. Good. Okay, so let's go for this Q&A session, and please send me any questions that you may have, and I'll be glad to answer them. And before I start answering your questions, let me just go through a couple of notes. So first of all, feel free to reach out to me directly and ask any question, and you can do this directly to my email, and we'll share my email address with you now. Second thing is, you can follow me on LinkedIn, YouTube, and my podcast. So basically on LinkedIn, I regularly post news from this compliance world. So if you want to kind of keep up to date, you can see my posts on LinkedIn. And on YouTube, I publish very often videos on various topics, including ISO 27001. So if you want to learn through this video format, then this YouTube channel might be interesting for you. And I also have this Secure and Simple podcast. And this is the podcast where I interview interesting people from this consulting industry for cybersecurity. For example, one of the interviews I did was with 𝘂𝗲𝗴𝗶𝘀. He's actually a country manager for PGR certification body, and you can hear his views on how certification bodies process these certification audits. So take a look at or tune into this podcast, and you will see this interview also with 𝘂𝗲𝗴𝗶, but also with some other interesting people. So we've sent you now this link to all of these channels, I mean to the YouTube and LinkedIn and this podcast, and yeah, you will be able to learn interesting things. Okay, third thing I wanted to announce is this my next webinar. It will be how to use company training academy for NIS2 DORA and ISO 27001 training and awareness. So basically, this is where I'll present, I would say, a very efficient way to deliver company-wide training and awareness. And you will now see these links where you can sign up for this next webinar next Wednesday at the same time as today. Good. Now let's see the questions that I received. So, okay, I have a question here from 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. If a company already has an equivalent certification like SOC 2, how much effort it takes for ISO 27001? So SOC 2 is not really my expertise, but from what I know about SOC 2, I would say that you will need maybe, I don't know, 10-20% additional effort to become compliant with ISO 27001. Because ultimately, again, it's not really so much about documentation. It's much more about really how your security processes work in practice. So if your security processes are operating according to SOC 2, this basically means that you will have a very easy job with, let's say, upgrading to ISO 27001. Okay, question from 𝗏𝗏𝗏𝗏. Do you practice this to share with your participants? Once again, bigger thanks. Appreciate your methodology of training. So yeah, thank you for thanking me. So yeah, it's been a pleasure. Let me see if there is anything else that is coming in as questions. Okay, if nothing else, then let's wrap up the webinar. So we're almost at the top of the hour. So as I mentioned, this 1 hour webinar was intended really to give you an overview of this certification process. The idea was not really to go into the details of, I don't know, implementing controls or risk assessment. And for these kind of things, feel free to open these articles that we shared with you today, and also to learn how this is done using this tool, using a tool like Conformia. And yeah, in about 10 minutes, we'll publish this PDF presentation deck from this webinar today, basically on the same page where you're watching the webinar now. So if you're watching this webinar through LinkedIn or through YouTube, simply leave this tab open, and in about 10 minutes you will see in the comment section, you will see this link for downloading the presentation deck. So just leave this tab open and come back in 10 minutes. If you join the webinar through Zoom, then we'll send you the presentation deck in about, let's say, through email by latest by tomorrow morning. So you will see this in your email inbox. And also what you will see is this short survey. It's really short, only 3 questions, and I would really appreciate if you find time to open it and give me your feedback on how I did. So yeah, please just fill it out. And this would be all. Thank you very much for your participation, and I hope you have enjoyed this webinar.